Welcome into this Tuesday edition of Push in the Pile, brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. Mike Renner and JP Acosta rolling through a little Monday Night Football preview today. Review. Gosh, what day is it? Tuesday here. We're doing a little NFL tiers list, as we always do on our tiers Tuesday shows. Oh my God, I cannot talk today. Probably should restart the show, but we're going to keep power through. Upon further review segment coming back today as well, where we go through some storylines to hit in the NFL, saying if they're real or if they're overturned, doing JP's playbook. And then at the end of the show, we're going to do a little top 10 redraft for the 2025 NFL draft. Never too early to do a good redraft. Going to start, though, with some news. Joe Burrow, Cincinnati Bengals quarterback, on track to start this Thursday night against the Baltimore Ravens. As a football fan, who likes watching good football games, happy about this. But as someone who lives in Cincinnati and knows a lot of Bengals fans, I can't imagine they're happy throwing him to the Wolves in what looks like a lost season for the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah, you're really playing with fire here if you're bringing Joe Burrow back, especially because he has a lot of injuries. He has an extensive injury history, and you don't want him to get injured again in a lost season behind an offensive line that has shown they really can't protect him. So I'm curious about this game specifically, because even if Joe Burrow comes back, they won't have the full complement of guys out there. T. Higgins has a concussion. He won't be playing in this game. The Ravens defense isn't exactly like the Monstars that we knew them to be, but they still can get pressure. They still like to blitz. They still want to get after the quarterback. So I'm curious on how the Bengals plan on insulating Joe Burrow to protect him, even if he decides to come back.
Yeah, to say he has a injury history would be an understatement. 2017, broken wrist. That was back in college. 2020, broken rib. That was his rookie year. And then end of rookie year, he tears his ACL, MCL, PCL, and has a meniscus tear. Next year, finger dislocation, knee sprain, MCL sprain. Those were in the playoffs. Next year, calf strain, wrist ligament tear, and then a turf toe now. So he's been through the ringer. Some of that's him and his play style. Some of that's the Bengals offensive line that's never been, I would call it, even an average unit since he's gotten into the NFL. And it's been better of late. I'll say it's just still probably the best version he's ever had. Not a high bar to clear. And the maybe silver lining of this is you have Ravens, Bills, Ravens, Dolphins. You don't face a great pass rush over the next 4 games, and that's kind of your window. You got to win these next 3 if you're thinking about even making the playoffs. You got to beat the Ravens twice. You got to beat the Bills. You basically have to run the table here at 3-8 to even have a chance. Will they? I don't think so. But that's your window, and then you can shut them down from there if everything. But even against bad pass rushes, it just takes one hit to ruin next season. I don't see the upside. Obviously, he's a competitor. He's going to want to play, but sometimes you got to protect the guy from himself.
Yeah, I'm sure competitive players, they want to play in the game. If they think they can play, they're gonna play. So good luck to Joe Burrow, who's gonna come back. But I'm just a little hesitant on playing him this season behind this offensive line with an offense that just clearly this team just doesn't have it this year. They don't have it this year, and I just don't think risking the long-term health of your franchise quarterback is the play.
Yeah, we're going to get to tiers list in a little bit, but safe to say they're not in one of the positive tiers when we get there. I had another news before we get to the Monday Night Football game that we saw last night. The Saints have been doing some interesting things of late. One, they brought in Justin Tucker for a tryout, which doesn't seem like there's any upside in a move like that, given what we all know about Justin Tucker and the reasons for him parting with the Baltimore Ravens. Don't need to rehash it here, but for a tryout, given he wasn't even good last year in this season's loss, that goes without saying. Everyone and their mother can tell you that's a dumb idea. And then they also had this story that just feels like an unnecessarily risky thing to do, given where they are. Brandon Cooks, wide receiver, formerly now of the New Orleans Saints, they did some funny business with his contract to get him released. So what they did was Brandon Cooks waived his right to $420,000 of salary this year in termination pay. so that money then would have been paid to him when they cut him, because they just cut him last week, would have been paid to him when they cut him. They agreed to not pay him that. So whoever would take on his contract this year would be on the hook for $420,000 of his money for the rest of the season. But then they also guaranteed him $5.94 million for next year instead of $1.69 million. So whoever signed him off of waivers, whoever claimed him, would be on the hook for that because it's guaranteed. But the Saints, the language in it said that if they cut him this year, they're not guaranteed the money. So basically poison pilled any team trying to claim him off of waivers. He went unclaimed off of waivers yesterday, but that's specifically against the rules according to the CBA. We'll see if anything comes of this, but just feels like a move they did not have to do at this point in time.
The language that Kellen Moore used when talking about the tryout for Justin Tucker, and this is the quote from Nick Underhill, NewOrleansSports.com or NewOrleans.com. He's been one of their leaders for an extended period of time on a very successful team. Obviously, there's been some stuff that's been unfortunate. He's gone through an experience, and I think it's about collecting what that experience was. What was that experience? What was unfortunate about it, Kellen Moore? What are we doing? Nothing about this team feels like they're making moves with like prudence. It feels like they're just like randomly pressing numbers, and on like, you know, the scene in like every like spaceship movie where the character doesn't know what buttons to press and they just randomly press all the buttons hoping something works. That's the Saints. The Saints are pressing all the random buttons trying to figure out how to be a competent franchise, and they keep stepping on rakes.
It's always incredible to listen to coaches, GMs talk about guys who have, you know, whether it's Justin Tucker here, whether it was Brandon McManus last year, whether it was Deshaun Watson with the Cleveland Browns, who have serious off the field issues because they can't actually talk about any specifics. They can't bring up what happened in any meaningful shape or form because there's just no defending it. There truly is no rhyme or reason or like thing you point to be like, yeah, he's actually a good guy. You know, you can't say that. So you have to step around it in the most vague language possible. And these guys are not hired for their eloquence. You know, they're hired to coach football. And so anytime they talk about it, it's just the most vague, hand-waving language, just like, and you know they hate it too, because a lot of times they're not the ones making these decisions. So the Saints just, I think you hit the nail on the head talking about they can't stop stepping on rakes. Like this is a franchise that has been in a downward slow spiral ever since Drew Brees retired. And I hope this is the bottom of the spiral. But if they're not willing to change course, it can sink lower. And I think that's the scary thing, should be the scary thing for Saints fans here.
And I think the biggest thing, like you said, is since Drew Brees retired, I think the Saints have thought they're better than they actually are. They've always tried to retain all the people that were around in that Saints tenure, and that's sort of why they are here in the first place. They've never really fully reset. And I think it's time for them to reset. I think it's time for them to get out of whatever Mickey Loomis is doing. It's time to get some new ideas into this front office, some new ideas into the coaching staff. And it's unfortunate to say that for the coaching staff because Kellen Moore is in his first year, but I think they have to do a full clean slate and just kind of completely start fresh with new GM, new coach, new quarterback. Let's see what happens from there.
Yeah, and hopefully they'll be in a position to get that new quarterback, but it wouldn't surprise me if they don't even go quarterback next year and just stay with the Tyler Shuck era. And I mean, we'll see how that goes, but like I said, we don't think it can sink lower, but sometimes it can sink lower, and I'm afraid that it might next year for the Saints. They haven't made the playoffs since Brees retired, 5 straight years now, and Mickey Loomis is still in charge, and we'll see if he's still in charge for this new rebuild. All right, let's get to Monday Night Football. Ugly, I think that's an understatement to call it. It was, we were there watching at a Miller's Ale House in, was that Winter Park or Winter Garden? Winter Garden. And we had Bob next to us. Bob was a problematic sports gambler, shall we say, and was doing live betting and kept letting us know about it. But we told him, hey, 49ers are going to run away with this in the second half. This Panthers team, you kind of know it early on in Panthers games, whether it's a game where they're showing up or whether it's a game where they're not. And this was just not a game where that Panthers offense showed up.
My big number for this game is sort of entails all of that. So my big number is 3 for 8, which is Bryce Young's completions and incompletions when he was blitzed in this game. Brock Purdy threw 3 interceptions and was still the better quarterback on Monday night. That's a hard thing to do. And there were 3 of the worst interceptions you're ever going to see. But Bryce Young just looks overwhelmed. And I think that it's so stark to watch their game plan against the Falcons and then their game plan against the Niners, who you can argue have a worse defense than the Falcons and a worse pass rush specifically than the Falcons. And he just looks more uncomfortable. I think part of that is some of the game planning and some of just the play calling. I think Dave Canales sort of called this game sort of scared. And I think the best thing you can say about this game is that the Panthers defense forced 3 turnovers and you only scored 9 points. You didn't score any points off turnovers. I think they scored, well, they might have scored 3 points off of turnovers in this game. It's really hard to win that way. When you can't put the ball into the end zone, when you get the ball off a turnover, it's hard to keep winning games like that. And I'm just so they're one of the more frustrating teams in the NFL because you can never get a full read on what this Panthers team is or who they are, because they'll have games like this and then they'll have games like the Falcons game last week. They'll get blown out by the Patriots. They'll shut out the Falcons again. They'll lose to the dumbest team. They lost to the Saints, but also beat the Cowboys. They don't understand what this team is this season.
They're just hamstrung by a quarterback who, I mean, he doesn't even throw spirals. We were talking about it last night. The amount of unclean balls that come out of his hand is kind of gross. And for a quarterback who has never been the most fundamentally sound, I think that was the big question mark outside of his height. Like, if you're just isolating it to his on-field play at Alabama, it was he is not a crisp footwork, 1 to 2 to 3 sort of quarterback. He is I liken it to like a point guard in basketball. Like he is just kind of a guy who gets back there and has a very free-flowing play style. It's been clear that free-flowing play style has not been conducive to NFL success, especially when he doesn't look confident. And like you can see it with his body language. He has some of the worst body language of any quarterback in the NFL. He is just not a guy who, responds well. And so that's why I said, you can kind of tell which Bryce Young you're getting, because if he's looking overmatched early and you start to see him, the shoulder shrug and the face droop, it's kind of over most of those Bryce Young games. He just has those duds. And unfortunately, this was one of them.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because I do think there is a competent starter in there for Bryce Young. Like, we've seen the highs of Bryce Young. He has the Panthers single game passing record. So I think there is that guy in there, but I do think there's so much that you have to do with the offense for you to get that. And I also think the Panthers offensive line just really they did not play well in pass protection in this game. And that's where we said they would struggle a lot. But I also sort of wonder why they went away from the run game as early as they did in this game. Like, it was still close at halftime. It was still a close game, relatively close for most of the game. And you only ran the ball 13 times, 9 times with your running backs. That doesn't feel like the Carolina Panthers. That doesn't feel like the way that they've won games. So I'm just curious on what made this game plan against the 49ers, who have maybe 2 healthy starters on defense right now. I wonder why they decided to go full spread and shred against this team instead of leaning on what made this Panthers offense go in the first place.
I do wonder if there's some semblance of, hey, we could make the playoffs. Like this season, if everything goes right down the stretch, it's still going to be tough. Even if with the win, they were going to be under 50% chance of making the playoffs. But like, yeah, we could make the playoffs, but what's more valuable is seeing if Bryce can actually like be the guy. And again, we came into this game saying this is the 29th ranked defense against the pass in the 49ers. They don't have a pass rush. This should be a game where Bryce looks good. This should be a good Bryce game. So I wonder if there was some, behind closed doors, whatever, Dave Canales, Dan Morgan, ownership saying, we need to let him cook. We need to stop this run heavy stuff just for a little bit, at least against the teams that don't have a great pass rush, don't have a great pass defense, to just really put it in his hands to have a sink or swim sort of game from Bryce Young, because this is year 3. This is not just, okay, it's year 1. He's going to get next year regardless. He may not get next year at this point. And you kind of have to figure that out, how much you have in this guy, what he can actually do. And I think you kind of figured it out in this one, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense to kind of want to see what you got in your quarterback, but it's sort of a disservice to everybody else on the team where your identity is running the football and being physical, and you only run the ball 9 times with your running backs in this game. It's an odd misunderstanding of who you are on the biggest stage that the Panthers have been on since maybe 2022. So I just wonder what went into that.
Maybe they're trying to tank Rico Dowdle's stock so they can resign him.
Resign him for a bargain.
Start Chuba Hubbard over him the rest of the season. Be like, nah, he wasn't good enough, and then you get him back. No, I don't think that's happening. I think someone's going to covet him next year because he's been disgustingly good.
Do we want to talk about the Xavier Legette, like not knowing
where
the out of bounds line was?
Yes, it was hilarious. So the play before, he has a catch on the sideline, and you're like, he figured out the sideline. You're like, he finally knows how to keep both feet in. I think it was the very next play. It might have been 2 plays later that he runs a route and takes himself out of bounds before coming back in, getting called for the loop. It was just so cosmically perfect.
It's just, come on, man. Like you're right there on the sideline. You have to be better working the sideline in the NFL, especially if you're going to live as an outside receiver. That's like rule number 1 that you learn playing receiver. Don't run out of bounds. Know where your feet are. And for Xavier Legette to still trying to be learning that, it's not a great look for anybody involved right now.
I have a take that is such a strong indicator of your success or your ceiling at wide receiver. Just think about any of the great receivers and what they are on the sidelines. They are electric. And it's something that guys do in like 9th grade. It's just like an instinctive spatial awareness thing that obviously matters a lot to playing wide receiver, that the good ones and the great ones, they've been doing since they were children. And I go back to even like Torrey Horton, who was like a day 3 steal of this year. He was doing that in college. Like that's something that he did. He had to play, was it against Colorado a couple years ago, where he's literally like toe touching. He's like at a 30-degree angle relative to the ground and keeping his feet in. It's just like the guys that do that well, they continue to do it well. The guys that don't do it well, they don't just learn. It's not something that's like a learned skill. It's a difficult sort of spatial. It's like an inert problem to human beings that can you know where you're at? Some people do, some people don't.
Yeah, it comes down to, like you said, spatial awareness, the body control. Not a lot of people have that. It's hard to learn body control, especially when you are a fully grown adult, So it's tough. I'm thinking this game, Jalen Coker outsnapped Xavier Legette. So you can sort of see the pecking order shaping up for the Panthers this season and possibly going forward. I think Jalen Coker is the better receiver. So it's a really bad look on a day full of really bad looks for the Panthers' young core.
All right. Let's take a quick break. After that, we're going to get to our tiers and upon further review.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ, streaming free anywhere you are.
All right, let's start with some of the rough tiers here. We're going to start with what I call the lost tier. It's just franchises that, I don't know. It's probably the two worst spots to be in of any franchise in the NFL. It's the Las Vegas Raiders and the New Orleans Saints.
Yeah, this one pretty obvious. These teams have not been, I'm not going to say not been relevant, but they haven't been competent in such a long time that's sort of tarnishing what people think of the Raiders. The Raiders used to be cool. Like they had like some of the coolest colors in the NFL. They used to be like this super badass team, and now they're just kind of lost. Like, I love the name of this tier because these teams they're just rudderless. They have no aim.
Yeah, and they're also not even slated to like pick number 1 overall. They're not even in the mix right now to get their quarterback. They'd have to trade up to do it. Maybe they will, but they just feel lost. All right, full rebuild tier. This isn't obviously a great spot to be in, but it feels like there's a path for these teams that's a little more obvious than the Raiders and Saints. It's the Titans, it's the Jets, it's the Dolphins.
It's good for the Titans to be in the full rebuild tier, and still know that you have a quarterback.
Yes.
Like, Cam Ward has been pretty good this season, despite all the surroundings around him. And knowing that you have the quarterback, it sort of feels a little bit like the Jaguars and Trevor Lawrence. You know that you have the quarterback. Let's try and build as much as possible around him. So hopefully this was the Titans version of Urban Meyer, and they get their version of Doug Peterson in the room soon, because this could really help Cam Ward out. This is a big offseason for him, big offseason for the Titans front office. I'm curious who they get to sort of help guide their young quarterback into this new era.
I actually liken it a lot to what the Patriots were at last year, because they have the most cap space in the NFL next year already, and they can clear like $40 million more if they get rid of Calvin Ridley, if they get rid of L'Jarius Sneed, and like they're going to get rid of some of their bloated contracts that they signed last offseason. Now, the Patriots, I think, had more on the roster talent already, but for the Titans, they might get, if they end up with the number 1 overall pick, they'll probably trade back. They'll probably get 2 firsts out of it, at least. They'll probably trade back with one of the teams that has 2 firsts, whether it's the Jets, whether it's the Browns, one of those teams who want to go up to the number 1 overall pick. And then they have, an insane amount of cap space. They will be big players in free agency. They'll probably be, front runners for like a Brandon Ayuk or one of the top wide receivers that hits the market. So I don't think it's going to be a complete turnaround the way it was with the Patriots, but it will be a lot better very quickly with where they're at right now.
Yeah, you at least know you have the quarterback. And with him playing the way he is, I think Gunnar Helm is a quality tight end. I think Kamir Adike is a good secondary, tertiary receiver. So you have at least some young options on the offensive side of the ball. Defensively, you just need talent. You just need more talent around Jeffrey Simmons.
I'm so sad that I came off. I had Gunnar Helm initially as a top 75 player in the class. I think I had him as tight end 5 based solely off of tape. His testing was terrible. I knew he was always going to be a athlete, but it came out worse than I think he ran in the 4.8s. And 4.8s usually are like my cutoff for a tight end, but he's just such a good receiver of the football. He's a quality player. I'm sad that I came off that tape, but for the Titans, it paid off.
I think I still had him pretty high, and I was like, dang, he's going 5th round. Like, this sucks for my brand, but it's good that he's playing good, because I was like, I held the line. Diamond hands over here.
I just got to stop watching the combine. I feel like every time I've been like, he had a bad combine, get off it. Every single time I've been wrong. I just got to stop watching it. It doesn't help me at all. All right, I digress. Let's get to the next tier here. It's a critical offseason tier. Like I said, this isn't the tier you necessarily want to be in, but I'm not writing any of these teams off in what they could be next season. They just got to have a good offseason ahead. Some of that's with their coaching and GM decisions. Some of that's with their roster decisions. But it's the Minnesota Vikings, the Cincinnati Bengals, the Washington Commanders, Atlanta Falcons, New York Giants, Arizona Cardinals, and the Cleveland Browns.
So for the Minnesota Vikings, what would be a good offseason? Is getting off of JJ McCarthy as your quarterback a good offseason? Because if it is, then it sort of calls back into question that 2024 draft. And do you give a GM like Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah an opportunity to go get another guy when he traded up for the first guy and whiffed on that?
Yeah. Now, it probably depends how much was Kwesi, how much was KOC saying this is, because KOC is like, was JJ McCarthy's biggest fan. Like, obviously you're going to be, but like he has said, like, that was the guy we targeted. He's who we wanted all along. We thought he was perfect for the offense, whatever. So it's always difficult in those situations, like who is more to blame. Obviously, if your head coach is saying this is the guy who's perfect for our offense and you need a quarterback, yeah, it's the play you have to make. I do think Kwesi deserves some credit for what he did in the Kirk Cousins saga and moving on from him at the exact right time, right? It was the perfect time to get what they got in return from, and they look very smart for doing so when they did it. So he deserves some credit for that. But I think how much was Kwesi, how much was KOC ultimately determines Kwesi's fate in that building.
I definitely think that's valid. I think for this season, I think the Vikings sort of misevaluated what their biggest needs were. When you look at, going out and signing Javon Hargrave and Jonathan Allen, like you kind of doubled down on the Jalen Redmond, like you doubled down on the undersized 3-tech body type. You really didn't address the cornerback spot. You kept Isaiah Rodgers, who still has one of like the more impressive like single games I've seen, but your defensive back room is still incredibly thin. It just feels like this season is sort of lost both due to injury, due to poor quarterback play. And I'm curious what would be a successful offseason for them. Are they going to give JJ McCarthy another year? Because, he got hurt during the middle part of the season. The critical portion of his development was lost. But, we can play the hypothetical game. But if JJ McCarthy did play those 5 games, like, how does he look?
Yeah, I don't think it would be much better. But we'll get to a little more McCarthy talk in the Upon Further Review segment. Next tier, it's the want to see them in a wild card tier. And it's the Steelers, Bucks, and Panthers. And then I'll combine that with the don't want to see them in the wild card tier, which is the Texans and Cowboys.
Wow. I think I would actually have the Panthers, Steelers, Texans, Cowboys flipped. Oh,
okay, wait.
About,
I'm saying
teams.
Yes. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So you, as a NFL team, want to see them in the wild card if you are, let's say the Seahawks and you're the top wild card, and that you want to go to the Bucks.
Yeah, this is perfect. I think both the Cowboys and the Texans, I was talking to one of my friends about this. If you combined both teams in the state of Texas, they would be the best team in the NFL.
They would be an all-time. That would be an all-time.
If you took the Texans defense and mashed them with the Cowboys offense, it'd be an all-time team. But those are the reasons why you don't want to see them. They can drag, if you're Texans, they can make any game a rock fight. With that defense, with the talent they have at every level, with the emergence or growth of Kalen Bullock this year, they have dudes at every single level of the defense. And in the Cowboys, you got to score like 30 points to beat them, because they're not going to stop a lot of people, although their defense has played better, but they are going to put up a lot of points. And I sort of still think you don't want to see the Bucks in a wild card, but they're sort of in the in-between right now because they're just so injured. And the hope is by the time you get to wild card or like playoff game territory, Bucky Irving, Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, all those guys are fully back. And that's when you don't want to see them, including Baker Mayfield. Like, all those guys are fully healthy. Yeah. But until that team gets healthy, I just can't really trust them.
All right, next tier. It's the year before the year tier. It's the Jags. It's the Bears.
Yeah, I completely agree with this one. I think both teams are sort of overachieving this year, which is a good thing. It's showing that you got the right coach and you got the foundation set. I think both teams, I sort of worry about, like, if they do make the playoffs, do they think they're better than they actually are? Which we've seen with a lot of teams. We saw it with the Commanders last season, where they made the NFC Championship and thought they were better than they actually are, didn't make a lot of significant additions to the defense, and now they're in critical offseason ahead. So I think both teams, honestly, the Bears and the Jags are very similar in terms of, like, they're both incredibly volatile offenses led by volatile quarterbacks, but they each have, like, potential to score 40 points or, like, to really blow teams out on both sides of the ball.
I think the first point you made is the most apt point with both these teams. They nailed the head coach, is the obvious takeaway from this season. Ben Johnson, Liam Cohen, you could not be happier with the starts to their reigns. Now, you have some meat on the bone with the respective quarterbacks, and they've been okay, but you're hoping they get even to higher highs than you've seen this season. But I think it's clear that both of these head coaches are just like straight up dudes. You are in great hands for the next however many years to develop those young quarterbacks.
Yeah, and both these teams, there's still talent that's needed on these teams. You know, if you're looking at the Jaguars, you're potentially still looking at trying to add at left tackle. You're still trying to add to the offensive line. The Bears are still trying to find their left tackle of the future. I think Theo Benedette is a cool player, but I don't think he is their long-term starter. You still need defensive help if you're the Bears. And if you're the Jaguars, you're going to get Travis Hunter back next season. So there's a whole lot more that goes into, like, year before the year. So we're not just saying, like, this team isn't ready yet, but next year, both these teams could be very, very good.
All right, next tier. It's the are they good tier, or do they just have a quarterback? And this is basically the entire AFC playoff picture. It's Bills, it's Ravens, it's Chiefs, it's Chargers.
Yep. This is honestly, these are 4 of the top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL.
Yeah.
So it's very fitting that all these teams have sort of put so much onto their quarterback to make them right, but they can only do so much. It's sort of why, like, when we say you need to QB proof your offense, or, like, I'll make the joke on social media, quarterbacks don't matter. Like, what you need to do is make it so that your quarterback doesn't always have to be Superman. It's cool that he can put on that cape, but having to do that all the time drastically decreases your margin for error. And because there's not a lot of dudes on these teams. Like, when you think about the Bills, like, the Bills offense is Josh Allen and their run game. They don't have anybody to really throw the ball to on the outside. When you think about Lamar Jackson and the Ravens, their offensive line has not been good this season. And that's really taken a hit out of their offense. Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, I would argue, they probably have the best offensive line, not best offensive line unit. I think the Bills had the best offensive line, but they had the best offensive infrastructure. But even then, it's still very, like, they have a whole bunch of niche role players. And in the Chargers, I mean, they're playing with Austin Deculus at left tackle right now. So you got to help your guys out. That is my slogan. Help your quarterback out.
Yeah, all of them just have, like, a glaringly obvious highlighter yellow part of their team that other DCs can attack on those offenses. That's just like, hey, the charge tackles are a disaster. Hey, the Chiefs running backs won't go for more than 10 yards in any single carry all game. Hey, the Ravens interior offensive line can just be demolished if we want to. Hey, the Bills wide receivers don't scare us whatsoever. So yeah, all of those just have big red flags, and it's just hard to sustain when you have that on the roster. Next tier, it's the need to get healthy tier. And it's the Lions and the 49ers. Obviously, the 49ers, like, it's not going to happen. So I threw them in this tier. They're not getting healthy. All those guys are out for the season. Doesn't change the fact that they still need to. And for the Lions, They could. Obviously, Sam Laporta just out for the season. That one's big. But the names that have been down for this team, Aleem McNeil, Kirby Joseph, Marcus Davenport, Terrion Arnold, Enos Rakestraw, Christian Mahogany, Miles Frazier, Josh Pascal, alongside Sam Laporta. It's just been same story, different year for the Lions.
What are they doing in Detroit, man? Like, it's every year this team falls apart at this part of the season. I hope this team can get healthy because I still think they can win the NFC North. I still think they can be a serious player in the Super Bowl and NFC playoff picture. They just have to get healthy, like you said, because that defense really needs a secondary pass rusher.
All right, let's get to the contenders. And we'll do contenders and tier one in the same breath here so we can kind of compare and contrast. Contenders, Patriots, Colts, Broncos, Packers, Eagles. I debated actually Patriots going in the are they good or do they just have a quarterback tier? But I put them in the contenders tier because they, again, are more likely than not going to have the 1 seed. If you have the 1 seed, you're a contender. Even the year the Titans got the 1 seed, it's like it is an easy path when you get the 1 seed. So I put them in contenders tier. And then the tier one is obviously then the Rams and the Seahawks.
We get another game of Rams Seahawks this year, and I think that's awesome. But
maybe two more.
We might get two more. The contenders feel like they each have like significant strengths that can get them to a Super Bowl. Where like with the Eagles, you have one of the best defenses in the NFL, if not the best defense in the NFL. But the offense just will never get out of its own way this season. I think we need to sort of scrap the idea of the Eagles offense being good this season because we're 12 games in and we've gotten maybe one good performance from them. And that was before the Rams figured out their secondary. The Packers have a great defense and a quarterback. I don't know. I would also consider like the Packers in the need to get healthy tier.
Yeah.
Although the one guy that they really need probably isn't coming back this season, Tucker Kraft, but you're getting Jaden Reed. You're getting Devontae Wyatt back. If you can get those guys healthy, like fully healthy, Van Ness is going to be coming back.
He played a little last week.
Yeah, you're going to get Van Ness coming back fully healthy. You're getting Devontae Wyatt fully healthy. If you can get those guys back, then yeah, I think they're a contender. And I mean, the Broncos, Colts, and Patriots all sort of feel like similar teams in different fonts.
Yeah.
Where like the Broncos had the best defense of the bunch, but also might have the worst quarterback. Like, and
we'll get to that upon further review.
Yeah. And then the Colts also, the quarterback scares me significantly. But the Patriots, you know, like they're missing Milton Williams. So all these teams have like small flaws that might keep them away from a Super Bowl. Whereas with the Rams and the Seahawks, these teams are just face melters right now.
They really are. They just feel like they're a different level of competency game to game, week to week. And just have high-end impact players at valuable positions. I mean, you have the best receiver in the NFL this season, Jack Smith-Njigba. You have probably the best receiver duo in the NFL this season with the Los Angeles Rams. It's like, that matters. You have guys that just, you have to absolutely game plan around his DC. That's what moves the needle in the NFL nowadays. And those two teams have it. And lo and behold, they have great defense too, which we're going to get to here in a second, actually. Let's get to the upon further review segment, where we'll start with this. Bo Nix is the least trustworthy quarterback amongst the division leaders in the AFC.
Man.
And that's with the Ravens being the division leader currently in the AFC.
Okay, so you know that he's not more trustworthy than Drake May or Lamar Jackson. So really it comes down to Daniel Jones and Bo Nix. So, man, I'm going to say I'm going to overturn it.
Okay.
Because I think that he's more trustworthy than Daniel Jones. But I do think the Colts have better skill position players than the Broncos, which will help make Daniel Jones' less trustworthiness not really matter. Like, as long as they continue just to feed Jonathan Taylor and minimize Daniel Jones' impact on the game, you can say like he can do whatever he wants back there, and you'll still have a pretty competent offensive output. I don't think the Broncos can do that with Bo Nix.
Yeah, I think I feel the exact same way you just said. I would trust Nix, so I'm going to overturn it. I would trust Nix a little more than Jones in a gotta-have-it situation. If they are, fourth quarter down to own 10-yard line, a minute 40 left, I'm taking Nix over Daniel Jones all day. I just am. I think those situations, he has proven it more than literally any point in Daniel Jones' career. And I thought this was very interesting. The EPA per dropback of those guys in the AFC, May, Jones, Nix. May is obviously far and away the best, 0.269. Jones not too far behind at 0.217. Nix at 0.073. So like two top 10 guys, one in the bottom 12. But then the fourth quarter, that order actually flips. Bo Nix is at 0.219 EPA per dropback in the fourth quarter. Daniel Jones at 0.095. And Drake May is actually only at 0.033 in fourth quarter and overtime this season. They've been front running a lot. So actually, Drake May's clutch gene, as Skip Bayless loves to say, it's kind of in debate right now. He's not fully certified clutch gene just yet.
Yeah, part of me feels like the fourth quarter stuff for the Broncos eventually is going to run out because we've seen it run out with a lot of teams.
Yeah.
But we know that this might be real. Like Bo Nix being able to play a lot better in the fourth quarter seems sort of real. And they've done it against real football teams. And the ability to just go and find answers and play a little bit more confidently in the fourth quarter, I think that's something innate that a lot of guys don't really have. So I would trust Bo Nix, but I also feel like it's tough because the Broncos might be undone by the fact that they don't really have the skill position talent yet to overcome the fact that you still maybe can't trust Bo Nix 100%.
Yeah, it's definitely the worst combo to have, I'll say, of any of these top guys.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to Rams. Couple ones on the Rams. The Rams are the best defense in the NFC.
I'm going to overturn this one. I think it's the Eagles still. I cannot go against the fact that there is just dudes at every single level that can completely flip a game. And I think they had a tough game against the Cowboys, largely because they were always on the field, and the Eagles just couldn't put the game away on the offensive side of the ball. But they have impact players, with the growth of Jordan Davis at defensive tackle, with the emergence of Nakobe Dean once again. They can rotate guys in and out of the game. Jalen Phillips is still playing very well. Although Andrew Makuba going to have ankle surgery, potentially going to be out for the entire playoffs. That's going to be a huge one for them. But I just think they have more solid answers at linebacker and in the secondary than the Rams, although Chris Shula and Aubrey Pleasant have done a great job masking the inefficiencies there for the Rams. I still think the Rams are we're going to win with our front four, and you got to get the ball out.
So the Rams are technically the top defense in the NFL in EPA per play as it stands right now. But I think I'm also going to overturn it because while the Eagles are down at 8th right now in EPA per play against, they've actually faced the most difficult slate of offenses of any team in the league this year in terms of EPA per play against. So to be 8th with that is obviously impressive. And also just like what they've done of late. Now, the second half against the Cowboys, irrespective, that's a team that just had guys who are different cats. George Pickens went off, and hey, you're not going to face a number 2 wide receiver that's like George Pickens the rest of the season. So that didn't help. But the past 2 weeks before that, Lions, Packers, just utter dominance. I think this team is probably the best defense, and I'd probably take the Seahawks defense over them as well. I just think they're a little more complete.
I thought about that, but then I kept thinking about if Ernest Jones isn't healthy, their linebacker depth is really, really thin, and they're really inexperienced at that linebacker spot. So whereas the Rams are thin talent-wise at linebacker, they at least make up for it in experience. Nate Landman has played a lot of football. Mm-hmm. I don't think Drake Thomas, Pat O'Connell, I don't think those guys have a lot of experience. So I think it's thin. Like we keep saying with the Seahawks and the Rams, the margin between these teams is really thin right now. And I think it's the same for the defense.
All right, let's go to the other side. The Rams are the best offense in the NFC. Will it stand?
Yeah, this one stands. I mean, they are incredible. And I even think against the Bucs, they went away from the 13 personnel stuff because Tyler Higbee wasn't playing, and also because the Bucs, when they play base defense, they can house people in run defense. So they just went 11 personnel and decided to shred the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are a good defense given any week. So the fact that they have talent at both receiver spots, they have a quarterback playing an MVP caliber level, a run game that's just successful. I don't think they're explosive as a run game, but they're successful enough to make you consider having to defend them as a run game. And Devontae Adams is just having a vintage Devontae Adams career, a Devontae Adams season. Like he leads the NFL in receiving touchdowns, and a large part of that is because like they go to him in the red zone more than almost any receiver in the NFL. But the fact that they're able to do that is one of those where it's like you have this guy, you also have Puka Nacua that you have to worry about, and Stafford's just playing at a super high level. This is, I would argue, they're the best offense in the NFL.
Ooh, okay. As much as I would love to put on a cheese head and my nerd glasses and say, well, actually, the Packers are number one in EPA per play of any offense in the NFC. I don't think the Packers are the best offense. Maybe when they get Matthew Golden and Jaden Reed fully healthy, integrated into the offense, maybe. But I'm going to say this one stands. This one, I'm not going to confirm it. I think it is tight. I think there are some good offenses, and I honestly think the Cowboys are also in the mix. And I actually put the Cowboys up there before I put the Packers up there, because we didn't see the offensive line for the Cowboys at full strength for a large portion of the season. We saw it this past week against the Eagles, and they kicked some ass on the ground in that second half. So I think the Cowboys are actually the closest one, but I'd probably lean Rams just because of the Sean McVay, Matt Stafford factor, and just the receiver factor there right now for Los Angeles. Let's get to this one. The Vikings are in the starting quarterback market this offseason.
Oh, man. Can we go to TV commercial?
Here, I'll make my ruling first. Confirmed. This is confirmed. You can throw out all this guy started off his career poorly that you want. You have to coaches don't have another year like this. GMs don't have another year. I think there will be guys available who are literally playing competently in the NFL right now, at least to a degree that J.J. McCarthy's not. I'm confirming this. I think you have to be, given how disastrous the start's been. And you can point to whatever tape you want about, some plays aren't his fault. That's every quarterback in the NFL. Some bad plays aren't and don't end up being their fault. When you don't have the good plays to offset it, when there's really no, I saw, Taylor Lewan say he's shown flashes. Flashes to me are a quarter of good play, a half of good play over a few games. That's a flash. A flash isn't one throw. Anyone can go out and make one good throw that's impressive if you have a strong arm. The sideline throw to Justin Jefferson this past week, I saw people like oohing and ahhing over it. And it was a good throw. Probably wasn't a good decision, though. If that's where you have to put a hole shot, because that was the only spot that was going to be completion, I would say that's actually a bad decision even by NFL hole standards, even by NFL window standards. So I don't think there's actually been flashes from J.J. McCarthy. The only flash was week 1, and I thought that one was even overblown in the comeback that he had. It was like a few good throws in one quarter. If we haven't seen it since, yeah, I'm worried.
I'm going to say this one stands.
Okay.
And a large part of why I think they're going to be in the starting QB market is because J.J. McCarthy also can't stay healthy.
Yeah.
Like he had the ankle sprain, he hit his hand on a helmet, he got a concussion. There's been a lot of injuries starting to pile up with J.J. McCarthy, where I think a lot of going into the NFL draft, one of his detractions for me was he's pretty thin. Like he's more of a slider quarterback than people think he is. But when you're the worst first round quarterback by statistically since like Jamarcus Russell, like you're getting into really, really scary territory. And it's not even like you can't even say like this offense is letting him is like off not just playing well around him. And I'd say like yeah, like they lead the NFL in drops, but when Carson Wentz was in the game, they did not drop as many passes. When like it's one of those stats. It's one of those where like your offensive line has been a little injured, hasn't played as well. But JJ McCarthy has not looked ready. That's the biggest thing. He just doesn't look ready for NFL speed. He doesn't look ready. He looks like everything is so slow and the game is just moving too fast for him right now. So I think they're looking for a starting QB this offseason, but I think they're going to quiet do it. Where like it's probably going to end up being like, I don't know. It'll be like a Jameis caliber quarterback where like it's a backup who can be a starter, but it's not like they're not going to go out and like draft a quarterback if JJ McCarthy's still on the team. I don't think so.
The funniest outcome, Kirk Cousins reunion. That would be the funniest. Easily.
It's like that Thanos quote, you couldn't live with your own failure. So that leads you back to me.
Oh, Kirk. Speaking of Kirk Cousins, the next one here is the Falcons are in the starting quarterback market this offseason. Kirk Cousins obviously has a $57.5 million cap number for next year, meaning he will not be a Falcon. And then obviously Michael Penix coming off his third career ACL tear, and this one was on the other knee, his left knee. Tore his right knee twice in college. This one, his other knee now.
I'm going to say stands, and it sucks because I do think Michael Penix Jr. can be a quality NFL starting quarterback. But when you're already 26 years old and have 3 major knee injuries and 3 major knee surgeries, 2 in one knee, one now in the other, also 2 major shoulder injuries, I just worry about the long-term health for Michael Penix because, again, this was his first full season as a starter, and he already had to miss games because of injury, multiple games because of injury. I just think that their hands are sort of tied. They can't really go and look for a starting quarterback because they don't have a first round pick. They're not going to go draft a guy. But the starting QB market this offseason, it might be a little rough. I mean, who are you going to go get? Like, again, is this another Jameis spot? Is this are you going and signing Russ? Like, there's not a lot of options here. Like, there is no Sam Darnold and there is no Daniel Jones for that case.
I'm going to overturn this one. I just, for what you were saying there about there is no Sam Darnold, there is no Daniel Jones, you're not going to draft one this year. You almost by default have to give Penix next year. Now, you're obviously not super excited about how this year went. You would love if he didn't tear his ACL for a third time. You would love if his numbers were a little better and the offense looked more competent than, he was 18th in EPA per dropback. He was 29th in completion percentage over expectation. Those are objectively not good numbers, given that he does have a bevy of talent around him at the playmaking positions. All that being said, I just don't think there's any upgrade to be had. You just have to ride this out. And it might not go well. It might be some new pieces in place, whether it's at OC, whether it's at head coach, whether it's at GM. But you just have to at least give him next year at this point, in my opinion, even if he is on the older end, even if it's not the sexiest option. I just think it has to happen.
I think they're going to do the same thing that the Vikings do where they like quietly bring in like a potential bridge guy. Because again, you can't play Michael Penix Jr. with his injury history and not have at least a competent starter or a guy that can spot start you games behind him. But I do think this offense could potentially look better with a different offensive coordinator, with a different head coach, maybe some more speed. If you get Darnell Mooney back for another like fully healthy year, like this offense could be good. And that's the most frustrating thing about this season. They can be good. It's just when, like, please go do it now because you're running out of time.
All right, last one here. Jameis Winston is the next Geno Smith. And to say the next Geno Smith being the guy who was highly drafted, obviously failed his first time around, bounces around, gets another starting shot in his early 30s. Jameis 31 right now, and then turns into a franchise quarterback as much as you can for a guy who's in his mid 30s.
I'm gonna overturn this one.
Oh, JP, breaking my heart.
I wish I could say this one stands or confirms, but Jameis still puts the ball in the other team's hands a lot. He still is putting the ball in dangerous areas, in dangerous situations. And that, especially in this era of offense where uber hyper efficiency is what's applauded. You don't want to turn the ball over. You want to get to the check down. That's how you keep the offense moving. I just don't think Jameis is going to be that guy. I feel like Jameis would be a great quarterback if this was 2005, but I just don't think that he keeps the ball. I don't think he protects the ball enough to be the next Geno Smith, because even when Geno at his best was somebody who could attack vertically but not turn the ball over a lot.
Jameis, to put some numbers to it, has 5 turnover-worthy plays in his 2 starts this year, according to PFF. That's an insanely high rate. That's 6.7% of his plays so far this season. Now, he also has the highest EPA per play of any quarterback in the league this season, and it came against the Packers and the Lions. He did it against the Packers and the Lions. I'm going to say he stands. I think he rebounds somewhere, and now maybe doesn't reach the highs that Geno did, but I think he becomes a starter for somewhere next year. And now he is under contract with the Giants next season. Then he becomes a starter next year. I think they trade him because they need the picks, truthfully. And you're obviously not in your long-term plans. That's Jackson Dart. They trade him. Someone covets him, and I think he turns into a competent starter somewhere and gets 3 to 4 years out of him, I think.
Which team is the one that trades for Jameis?
The one I want to see, and this is purely because of how they're operating right now, Arizona Cardinals. I think he would be perfect for Arizona. It's one of the 3 pass-heaviest teams in the NFL this season, and that's been with a backup quarterback for a good portion of that time. They want to sling it. I think the fit with the talent there, guys like Marvin Harrison, Michael Wilson, Trey McBride, I think he would put up numbers there in the desert.
I like that one. I like the Cardinals a lot, especially because we don't know what's going to – I think Kyler Murray is going to be off the team this upcoming season. I think Jacoby and Jameis are very similar in how they play, where they are pure throwback passers. Maybe I think the Jets are going to be picking too high, and they're going to pick a quarterback this season. Man, it's sort of tough. Maybe Atlanta. Maybe Atlanta becomes a real thing. The funniest one to me would be Minnesota. It has to be Minnesota. Where Jameis,
easily.
Jameis would be Kevin O'Connell's most imaginative QB reclamation project yet. This is his magnum opus.
Oh my gosh. I thought Kirk Cousins was the funniest option, but it's Jameis is always the funniest option. No matter what it is, if you're talking about funniest quarterback, it's always going to be Jameis.
I still think the funniest QB coach pairing is Kyle Shanahan and Jameis Winston. Just give me one season of that.
It's unfortunately, I think that's too much of a pipe dream to exist, but it would be, entertainment levels off the charts. If Kyle Shanahan could go into halftime though and explain away Brock Purdy's 3 picks as just it's just good decisions, bad throws. He could explain away a lot of Jameis. He'd have to do a lot of explaining, but he could do it.
Jameis is throwing 80 touchdowns and 80 interceptions.
Dude, I didn't realize his last starting season. I had to look it up. He had 6 pick sixes his last full season. It doesn't seem possible. Like 6 picks is it's probably half your picks for the year. And
That's insane.
Yeah. Jameis, impressive. All right, let's get to a quick break. And then we got JP's playbook and a little top 10 redraft from this year coming up next.
You can't count on accurate expiration dates.
That is a rookie mistake.
Or the kindness of strangers. But thanks to CBS Sports, you can always count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS and Paramount Plus.
P, what we got in the playbook this week?
All right, so we're going to start off in Dallas. We're going to Jerry World with the Dallas Cowboys defensive changes sort of stunning the Eagles. And there was a quote that I picked up on after the game and came from Eagles left guard Landon Dickerson. And Landon Dickerson said after the game that the Cowboys played a lot of 5-man fronts, and that was why the Eagles struggled in the run game, because Dallas hadn't shown many odd fronts this season, and it's something that they didn't have much time on task practicing this week. And
sure, Landon, what was every other game's excuse? Not to.
Yeah.
I'm joking.
When I said it, I got a lot of, well, they did it against Las Vegas and they did it against Arizona. But I think that this game was really a great example of Matt Eberflus, who is not an odd front guy. He is not a 5-man front guy. He is the most 4-down country cover 2 guy almost in the NFL. He's almost like the inverse of like Gus Bradley, where like he's always going to play cover 2. He's always going to play 4-man front. But the fact that he's changing his stripes to fit his personnel is a really good thing. So this play, I think, was really indicative of how it sort of gave the Eagles problems. They're in 11 personnel, and they're in a bunch. So that's Dallas Goedert to the backside on the opposite by the right tackle. That is Darius Cooper and Devontae Smith. Eagles are in a 5-man front, but it's a 5-1. It's a penny front, because Donovan Wilson is walked in as the extra linebacker because you don't want to lose passing bodies in 11 personnel. The Eagles are going to run GT counter. So that means Tyler Steen and Fred Johnson are pulling to the opposite side of the ball. But the difficult part of this block, pause it right here. That means Cam Jurgens has to go and block a 4-eye, because you're in a 5-man front. The spacing is a lot different. It's a lot more difficult. So a 4-eye is a lot harder to block in GT counter than a 3-tech or a 1-tech for a center, because you have to go out and get them. And with Cam Jurgens, with a bad back, with all the injuries that he's had, it's really hard for a guy to go out and make that block, even when he's fully healthy. But you can see that Quinnen Williams gets up the field super quickly, and Saquon Barkley is forced to change his path. It sort of nullifies the fact that James Houston doesn't really play this block super well, where like when you get a pull, you want to try and actually like thud up and like thump the puller. James Houston's not that kind of guy. He's incredibly quick though. So he slips the pull, but it works because Quinnen Williams gets so far upfield that changes Saquon's path. Saquon has to cut back again, and Jadeveon Clowney's able to come from the backside and make the play. So this is one of those moments. It's one of the games where I actually thought Matt Eberflus and the Cowboys defense changing their stripes and becoming something that fits their personnel better. I think it was a really good example of self-scouting, great coaching, and it led to the Cowboys' upset of the Eagles.
I loved where Stryker paused it too, because you see that there's a massive hole there. If he didn't have to change his path, that's a big gain. But when you have that's why you go out and get a guy like Quinnen Williams. You get a penetrator who can do things like that. And yeah, I mean, obviously, like I said, the Eagles don't need too much creativity to stop their running game, but the Cowboys' run defense has been so bad this year, and to see them make changes like that, they're scared. That's why they're in what tier was it called again? That's why they're in the don't want to see them in the wild card tier.
Mm-hmm. My next play for this week, we got to go to Myles Garrett, who is not a real person, just not a real person at all. He had 11 pressures on Sunday against the Raiders, which might be one of the best single game performances I think we've had this season, regardless of like the position. I think Myles Garrett's performance against the Raiders was one of the best single game performances of the season. And that includes the 5-sack game he had against the Patriots. He's had 13 sacks in 4 games, which is equal to Brian Burns, who is second place in the NFL in sacks this season. Brian Burns has 13 sacks this season. Myles Garrett has 13 sacks in 4 games. And what he does on this play to Ian Thomas and Stone Forsythe is unhuman. It is not real. This is illegal in like every state. So the ball is snapped. He's staring at the ball to time his get off. He has one of the quickest get offs in the NFL at 275 pounds. Immediately, you're screwed. But we talked about this earlier in the season with Kyle. Where Myles Garrett has become so good is you can't chip him because he's so good at using the chip against you. So this ball is snapped. You try and get a double team. You try and get a chip with Ian Thomas. Myles Garrett reduces his surface by dipping his shoulder. Ian Thomas gets none of them, just whiffs. And now Stone Forsythe is on an island, and this is just grown man strength. His ankle doesn't get stepped on, like it's close, but this is just grown man strength. This is just a dude being much bigger and much better than you. Put Stone Forsythe on his ass. This ends in an incompletion. This ends in a pressure for Myles Garrett. There's nobody else in the NFL doing that. And I think that it's the way that he wins, which is so terrifying for a guy that's his size, because he's also so technically refined. He can win with power. He wins with speed and bend around the edge, but you can't ever truly get a handle on him. It's sort of like I actually wanted to ask Kyle later this season. I wanted to ask him, who would you rather have to block, Micah Parsons or Myles Garrett? Because Myles just seems like such a headache, like such a pain in the ass to block, because he's got so many different things he can do. And on this play, it's the best defensive player in the NFL making a statement where you're not going to be able to chip him. He reduces the surface, and then as soon as he gets his hand inside of Stone Forsythe's chest, this rep is over.
I think the craziest thing is he turns 30 a month from now. He's not in his prime. This is, that's not physically, it shouldn't be physically in his prime. You would not know that by watching him play, though. 13 sacks is the NFL record over a 4-game span. I mean, obviously, 13 sacks over a 4-game span is outlandish. I think we're witnessing something just like that. We just need to appreciate what's happening. This is all time. No one's ever rushed the passer like this, like what Myles Garrett's doing right now.
So right now, Myles Garrett is 24th all time in sacks. He has 120 and a half. The career record is Bruce Smith with 200. Do we think Myles can catch him?
So that's four more seasons of 20-ish range. Now, obviously, he never had this many sacks prior. 20 is a high bar to clear. So maybe 5 seasons of 15 then? I don't think he does 5 seasons of 15. That's just impossible. But I think he's in the ballpark. I think he ends over 185. But 200 is tough.
Yeah, like I think he's gonna end up like right now. Reggie White has 198. Bruce Smith has 200. But Kevin Green is third with 160. I think Myles Garrett can get up to third. I think he's gonna easily like get close to Reggie White. I don't know if he's gonna catch Bruce Smith. I think Myles Garrett would have to play almost into his 40s to do that. But we're looking at the best modern defensive end in like modern history.
And it's going to help because they got a lot of young defenders on that defensive line, whether it's Mason Graham, Mike Hall, Isaiah McGuire, Alex Wright. Like they're going to, the next 3 years of his deal here, they're going to have other guys getting pressure that give him more sacks. Like it's not just going to be, we can just game plan for Myles. So at least over the next 3 years, I don't see him slowing down. It is going to be difficult, but he's such a physical freak that, like, take a step off him, he's still a physical mismatch. Take 2 steps off him. So, like, he could feasibly play into 36, 37 the way someone like a Julius Peppers did and still be hitting, 7 to 10 sacks if he really wants to. So I think he could grind it out. I guess that's a long way of saying if he really wanted the record, Myles Garrett could get it.
Yeah, like he would, if he's got 79.5 sacks to reach Bruce Smith, he would have to, if over 5 seasons, he'd have to get 16 sacks over the next 5 seasons to catch him. And that put him at what, 35, 36?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's out of range for Myles Garrett, considering that his year over year, like, sack totals have been, he's had over 10 sacks every year since his rookie season. It's possible. It really is possible.
Let's see. I think Julius Peppers is probably a solid corollary. And Julius Peppers was 37 years old, and he had 11 sacks. So after 35, Julius Peppers still put up 23.5 sacks after age 35. So in this final 3 seasons at 36, 37, 38. If he really wanted to extend it, and again, it's going to have to come with Myles Garrett knowing that, like, he's lost a step and knowing that he's not the same guy. But if you really wanted to extend it, I think he could get to that age, still be playing at that age, and I think he could still be doing, an effective pass rusher, even if he's lost steps. So yeah, I'll say it's up to Myles Garrett if he wants to break the record or not at this point. Let's get to a little top 10 redraft. Everyone's favorite thing to do. And no, it's not too early. It's never too early to do a redraft. I would do a redraft the day after the draft if I could. I get the number 1 pick so that you get the Jaguars. And we're not changing any trades. We're not trading any of these picks. And with the Titans, I am sticking with Cam Ward at number 1 overall. It's obviously not been the slam dunk Jaden Daniels rookie season, but it's been more than encouraging enough, especially given that, like, what he just did to the Seahawks was wildly impressive given the level of difficulty that I'm not coming off it whatsoever.
Yeah, this feels like you have your guy. Some of the caliber, the difficulty of throws that he's making without a super offensive line or super dynamic receiving threat with him, you got to keep him at number 1. Here's where we get a little fun. Here's where we make things interesting. Number 2, the Jaguars take Tedoroy McMillan. And
no.
McMillan at 2 is not to take away from what I think of Travis Hunter, who can be a very, very good receiver or corner, wherever you want to play him. But I do think that the Jaguars needed a receiver. And I think playing Travis Hunter both ways, I thought it would be cool. I thought they would play him more at corner than receiver, but it's clear that they need the help at receiver more. And because he hasn't been as constant of an impact player this season, I think Tedoroy McMillan instantly raised the floor of the Panthers receiving game. He instantly raised the floor of that receiving offense, raised the ceiling as well. And I just think Trevor Lawrence would be much more confident throwing passes to a bigger body guy who can take some of the hits, create separation. I think McMillan at 2 is reasonable given what Travis Hunter hasn't been able to do this season.
Oh, JP, are you sure you want this to air? We can cut this. It's not too late.
No, let's do it. Let's light this candle.
You really want Big Cat Country coming for you?
Let's light this candle.
No, I don't disagree. It won't, and it's one because I think that's how good T-Mac's been. I think he has been exceptional. I think he's a true number 1. I think he's a borderline top 10 receiver in the NFL right now. And when that's the case, it's like, do you want this? It's like that Family Guy segment. It's like, it could be anything. It could be even be a boat. It's like, you got the boat. Why not just take the boat in a redraft if you could? Why not just take the guy who's darn good right now in Tedoroy McMillan? And with Travis Hunter, I think one of the underrated aspects of the playing both ways thing, especially if you're not going to do both full time. And I'm still not putting that completely past him, but with the injury and what we saw this year, it's like, that's a long shot. It's kind of the headache of having to carve out as a coach a role specific to him, that you have to think about him almost every single game and like how many snaps is he playing? What package is he in? It's like it's a part of your team that is more takes time out of your week. And if he goes down, it takes a role out of the team that then doesn't exist because no one else is going to do that. So like it's just another piece that some coaches don't want to have to deal with. And I wonder if going forward, we're going to see him just dialed into one or the other.
I think we're going to see him dialed into one or the other moving forward because of that knee injury. And I think they're just going to mix in like special packages. Like if they want to play him at receiver, he'll be receiver full time, and then mix in like, hey, we're playing a team with 2 great receivers. You're going to mix in at corner for a couple plays instead of trying to truly be a full-time player.
All right, I'm at number 3. I got the Giants. I debated Jackson Dart here because I think if you ask Giants fans, hey, between Jackson Dart and Abdul Carter, like which would you rather have going forward? I think they'd say Dart, but I'm going to stick with Abdul Carter. I think he is on the verge of being special. I think it's worth noting that it's still only his 2nd year playing off the edge of his career, and he's already like a high-end impact guy. Needs to finish more plays. That's obvious watching his tape, but the high end from him is so high that I'm buying into what Abdul Carter could be at number 3 still.
So my guy actually, it wasn't Dart. It wasn't Abdul Carter. I thought about Armand Mimbu here at 3.
Okay. Because, yes, just
Given-
build a dominant O-line.
Given the struggles of their offensive line, given some of the things that they want to do and want to be, Mimbu at right tackle, Andrew Thomas at left tackle, you can forget about both tackle spots for like 10 years. And that would mean a lot to a guy like Jackson Dart, who doesn't have to worry about taking hits as much as he does within the pocket. Outside the pocket's more of a dangerous game. But I think Mimbu makes a lot of sense here, but I do like taking Abdul Carter just to sort of turn up the pass rush again.
All right, we got it 4.
I'm sticking with Will Campbell at 4. I think this was just as much a culture pick as it was needing a left tackle for Drake May. And Will Campbell had some rough periods to start the season, but I think he's constantly gotten better. And I think he really sets the tone for the physicality that Mike Vrabel wants for his offense. I debated Josh Simmons here, and I debated Mimbu here as well. But I do think Will Campbell just fits the culture of the New England Patriots.
I do think watching all the rookie offensive tackles, I would say who has the highest ceiling, I would say Josh Simmons. Now, given the off-field stuff that we still really don't know happened this year, given the knee, I'd probably lean Campbell or Banks if I really wanted a left tackle, just like for the careers going forward. But specifically for the Patriots, and I think the culture fit is the big aspect here. It's like, yeah, it's really hard to argue anyone else. Honestly, in this one, though, Travis Hunter, if he's available, I'd probably lean Hunter, but your need at tackle is so great going forward, and these tackles look so safe at this point in their careers that I wouldn't argue too hard. All that being said, I'm going Travis Hunter at 5.
Yeah.
Cleveland Browns. I'm not going Mason Graham here. If I have a chance to get in Travis Hunter, even if he's not healthy right now, even if Mason Graham's been, I think, impressive up late, and I think he's well worth the number 5 overall pick in retrospect, he ain't Travis Hunter and what he could do. And they definitely need wide receiver at this point, this Browns team.
Somehow ending up with Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders would be incredible for the 2025 Browns redraft.
Oh, I thought it could happen too. Could have.
Mm-hmm. 6 overall pick. I don't have the Raiders taking Ashton Jeanty. I have them taking Josh Simmons. And obviously we know the whole, like, Jeanty is great, not great for that offensive line yet. The offensive line just doesn't have talent. And I just think Josh Simmons is one of the most talented players from this draft class. Like, the stuff that he's doing right now at left tackle for the Chiefs, I think he had an awesome game against the Colts on Sunday. Multiple highlight reel blocks. I clipped a few of them on Twitter where he's just like, he's snatch trapping and flattening guys. Like, he really does remind me of Christian Darrisaw with how just effortless it looks for him. And putting him at right tackle, you can put him at left tackle. I just think you need that talent in the room.
Yeah, I do think in retrospect, the Raiders, any offensive linemen would have been better than what they did at 6, or would put them in a better situation going forward. But yeah, safe to say Ashton Genty's not making our top 10 in this redraft. All right, number 7, New York Jets. You just can't go against Armand Membo. He's too good at what they want to be. His ceiling as a run blocker seems limitless. I debated quarterback for a lot of these teams, and obviously quarterback being Jackson Dart. But I'll just say right now, he didn't make our top 10. And for me, specifically with the Jets and the Saints, who I have coming up next, I just think the timeline is such that you're going to want to draft it this upcoming year or the year after. The timeline's pushed so far out now for these teams that I would rather take the wild card because they'll probably draft number 1 overall or in the mix of number 1 overall, 2026 or 2027. That's just where these teams are at as franchises. That I think that wild card of what that draft pick could be in the future at quarterback is just a little more exciting to me than Jackson Dart right now. So I went Armand Membo.
This is as much a cultural or a identity pick as much as it is Armand Membo is fantastic. What you want to build in New York is an offensive line that has talent, athleticism, and can run the heck out of the football. And Membo's been great. I think he's been awesome. And he's setting up with Olu Fashanu, Armand Membo, forget about tackle spot for next 10 years.
Yep.
Number 8 pick, the Carolina Panthers. I did consider another receiver. I possibly considered Ibuka, but I decided to go Jalen Walker.
Yes. Every mock draft I did coming to life.
This was the most obvious. I had Jalen Walker here a lot. He has a 10.7 pressure rate, 3.1% sack rate, which for the Panthers, among their high volume pass rushers, would be first on the Panthers in terms of pressure rate, sack rate. He just fits. I thought he fit the identity and the culture need for what the Panthers want to be defensively. He's a really strong run defender despite not being huge as an edge player. But I just think that the Panthers need something on the defensive line. They need some juice. And Jalen Walker brings that more than anybody else that was sort of left on the board as a pass rusher. And I just think he just fit what they want it to be and who the Panthers want to be in terms of physicality on both sides of the line. Jalen Walker is that guy. And with McMillan off the board, I went Jalen Walker.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite fits all draft season. Now I don't disagree with where they went, and obviously the guy they picked went 2 overall in this, but Jalen Walker in a Panthers uniform would have been fantastic. All right, number 9, Saints. I feel I changed one of my picks. This one's Kelvin Banks Jr. I think they made the right pick originally. I think he's a franchise left tackle from what we've seen from him of late. He was my OT1 going in. And yeah, again, you could draft Jackson Dart here, but he would be stepping behind the worst pass blocking offensive line in the NFL if you did not have Kelvin Banks. It might be the worst still with Kelvin Banks. So
I actually was a little skeptical of Kelvin Banks coming out of the draft. I thought he might have been better at right tackle, might have been a little bit better as a guard because of just the wideness of his base.
It's a weird prospect for sure.
Very, very weird prospect, but his play has sort of turned up as the season's gone on. You can tell he's grown a lot. I still sort of think they need better coaching along the offensive line in New Orleans that would really improve Kelvin Banks a lot. And with Membu, Simmons, Campbell off the board, Banks makes the most sense here. They still need offensive line help. I mean, you could consider Ibuka, but I think that would be adding a need on top of a strength on top of a strength when you talk about having, at that point, Olave and Rashid Shaheed. But I think Kelvin Banks is it's an identity play. Number 10, Chicago Bears. It's got to be Tyler Warren, right?
Let's get Kyle Long on the phone. I'm calling Kyle right now. I need to see his take because here. Pick up Kyle. Because he's been Colson Loveland's biggest hater until recently, and always laments that Tyler Warren would have been the pick. Come on, Kyle. We need you. Maybe he's on camera right now.
Yeah, he might be going on HQ.
He might be on HQ right now. We may have ran too long. Tyler Warren, though.
Tyler Warren I just think he's incredible. After the catch, some of the screen game stuff that he does. It took a long time for Loveland to really get incorporated into the offense in Chicago, where I think Warren can just be instant impact. I think with the ability after the catch, he meshes a lot better with what the Bears want to do. Obviously, Loveland is going to be a great player, but Tyler Warren's already one of the best tight ends in the NFL.
See, I go back and forth on this because I don't want to say I knew this was going to happen with Tyler Warren, but it was obvious. It was obvious watching him in college that like he would be a very solid starting NFL tight end. With Loveland, it was always the upside was higher. It was always like, hey, he can actually get vertical at a better rate. He can maybe go win on the outside a little bit more down the field. So I don't think I would have changed the pick. I don't think I would have gone Warren over Loveland specifically for them. Now, other teams, like if it was, if you're the Panthers, I would have gone Warren over Loveland. Like Panthers need someone who's just reliable for Bryce Young, right? Maybe that one I want the guys a little bit more NFL ready. Oh, here, Kyle's calling me back right now. Perfect. Kyle.
Yo.
You're on Pushing the Pile right now.
What do you mean?
You're back on. We need your take. We're doing a 2025 NFL draft redraft. We came to the number 10 overall pick, the Chicago Bears. Tyler Warren and Colson Loveland are both on the board. Who are you picking?
Well, if I have to take a look at the last 4 weeks, I'm going to be going with Colson Loveland. And if I'm going to trust in my guy, Mike Renner, who has been on the nose about this Colson Loveland character since pre-draft, I'm going to redraft Colson Loveland. Look, Tyler Warren's awesome. I think he's going to be, for the next 10 years, one of the top 3 to 5 tight ends in football. But I think Colson Loveland could do the same thing. I just think yards after the catch, body control, his ability to be anywhere on the football field, it makes him special. And obviously, he's got the trust of his quarterback and his coach. I'm going to stick with the Ryan Poles pick, Colson Loveland to the Bears.
Thanks, baby. Miss you. Take it easy.
All right, see you guys.
Perfect. Love it.
Of course he went Colson Loveland. We've talked him into it.
We got him. We finally got him. But I think Warren would really give the Bears a little bit more pop in the short yardage game and in the screen game, which, of course, we know right now the Bears are all about chunk plays and explosives, but Warren would give them such easy offense. And imagine all the trick play stuff Ben Johnson could do with Tyler Warren. Yeah. Like, that's another added element.
I do think, though, Loveland has been awesome as a blocker. Or, like, not awesome, but, like, he was not billed as a blocker. He was billed as, like, the receiver of the two. I think he gets very underrated, and he's only 21. He's 2 years younger than Tyler Warren. I always go back to, like, George Kittle wasn't even starting at Iowa, and he was 21 years old. Like, these guys at that point in time, when you're 6'5", coming from Idaho, he's probably going to get physically more mature as his career goes on. You can expect more from him down the line. I don't know. I lean Loveland. You'd go Warren. I don't think there's any wrong answer, though, for the Chicago Bears in the redraft.
Yeah, they either or. I went between both Warren and Loveland, but either one of those guys. This tight end class looks like it rules. So,
is there anyone you felt bad leaving out where you're like, oh man, we left out him?
I felt bad leaving out John T. I really did. Like, he's such an awesome player and is so cool as a runner, but I just don't think any of these teams are really ready for a running back. Like you could maybe argue the Browns at 5. I think you could maybe argue for, like, maybe the Saints if you want to get off of Alvin Kamara, or even, like, you could argue the Bears. That's the one team where I was like, okay, Junty makes sense here, given sort of the inefficiency of DeAndre Swift and Kyle Monangai, but I felt bad leaving him out.
I felt bad leaving out Walter Nolan.
Yeah.
I think Walter Nolan's going to be a top 5 pass rushing DT in the NFL by the end of his rookie contract. I debated him for the Saints, but their offensive line's so bad. I think he is, what we've seen from him is nothing short of special for a rookie DT. And he'll only get better as I think there's a next step in his development that's truly, like I said, top 5 DT in the NFL sort of special with how twitchy he is, his short area ability, how he can penetrate. I just think there's so much there to work with.
I also, again, sticking to the priors that I had going into the draft, Will Johnson should have been a guy that was going. I still had a lot of high hopes in, even with the knee injury, and he has been incredible for the Cardinals and just the splits with him on the field versus off. The Cardinals have built something on the defensive side of the ball. They have young, very good players on that side of the ball. It's just about finding the quarterback. But I felt bad leaving out John T and Will Johnson.
It's crazy. The Cardinals knocked their rookie class out of the park. Knock it out of the park. Now, both guys have been banged up, which is part of it. But you think usually when you knock a rookie class out of the park, it's like, oh, we're better next season. A lot of their moves hit. It's just the offense was such a disaster this season. All right. There's our top 10 redraft. Appreciate you guys sticking with us on a little bit of a longer episode, but the Tuesday ones are probably going to be a little longer going forward, given that we nixed the Wednesday show. And as I say that, we have a Wednesday show this week. That's when our preview is going to be. We'll be back tomorrow previewing all of the week 13 slate now, Thursday night game or the Thursday games, the Friday game, and then the Sunday slate. We'll be back tomorrow. Thanks so much for tuning in. Until next time, keep pushing.